Hi and welcome to The Practice Gap, the podcast for closing the gap between the practice you have and the one that you want. I'm Elizabeth, a chiropractor, a business owner, coach and entrepreneur on a mission to help you move from frustration and overwhelm to clarity, focus and joy in practice. Hi and welcome for today's show. Today I have with me remotely Dr. Alicia Lukachko from New Jersey, USA. Could you please start by telling the audience a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me on this podcast today. So as Elizabeth mentioned, I am from New Jersey, and I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I work as a therapist and also engage in some research around mental health, around engaging in treatment and interventions and how best to support individuals in schools, in the workplace, and also individually at home.
The reason I have you on the show today is to talk about the subject a subject I know very little about, and I know that you do. You know a lot about this subject called compassion fatigue. What is that?
So compassion fatigue, it's a state of emotional and physical exhaustion, and it really results or grows out of a long-term or prolonged exposure to trauma, to traumatized individuals, to a high degree of stress. And we often see this in professions like social work, counseling, healthcare, these types of professions that require a high degree of empathy. And we can also see this in caregivers. So this doesn't have to necessarily be tied to your professional life, but if you serve in a role as a caregiver, you can also see this as well. And it develops over time due to this workplace stress. It can also set in suddenly and be tied to that emotional demand that's part of caring for others.
So at sometimes you get super tired of all your patients. So is this if you are really happy and then one day it's just like, you can't stand another person telling their terrible story and you just want to say like, get your shit together and move on. Could that be a little putting compassion fatigue at the end of the line or something?
Well, it can certainly show up like this, and it doesn't have to come on suddenly. It can develop over time where you're really feeling a greater degree of detachment, of numbness, a decrease in that sense of empathy, even as you were talking about, like an irritability, a lack of patience, and this sense of being overwhelmed.
And how common is this?
So it's common. Yes, we see this a lot. And it's something where I think there's been greater attention to this topic, especially as we saw many of our first responders and medical professionals and also mental health professionals during the COVID pandemic and the heights of it. I feel this issue really came to the forefront. Of course, this is an issue that has been in the research domain, and it has been a topic that's been discussed prior to, but when people were faced with such a high levels of, caretaking hours, those sorts of trauma that individuals are being faced with during the pandemic, I believe that really led to a greater spotlight on this issue.
So I remember very many years ago, I had a friend. She went to med school and she had really a hard time the first year. She practiced, and then she said to me she just wanted to go into some kind of medical work that didn't require her ever to talk to patients. And that really, it stuck with me. This is many years ago. Could that be like an early sign of severe compassion fatigue?
Yeah. So, that recognition that and oftentimes we see this, that there is a feeling like, gosh, I really need to either shift gears or, step away from that engagement because it's really causing, a great degree of stress, and I don't have the capacity for it anymore. So that's definitely something that can be seen. And also that recognition is a very important piece. Individuals do have to take a step away and create, be very aware of their feelings and setting up boundaries to really address those feelings of compassion fatigue.
So, but if you have a friend that is struggling with something, if it's illness or a shitty divorce or a bad relationship, can you, as a friend, start? That's like when you get tired of their story and nothing is changing. Is that also is that compassion fatigue, or is that something else?
I would say that's something else. I mean, there's a similar feeling of perhaps not having a high degree of empathy or patience, but compassion fatigue is really so much more than that.
It's more. So if you are irritated at a friend, it's more other things and not compassion fatigue.
Yes, I mean there could be an element of that certainly, but when we're talking about compassion fatigue, it really is a larger set of symptoms where it is more pervasive, and not just in that moment, but more pervasive symptoms of the physical, emotional, and behavioral symptoms. Really, as I mentioned, having those feelings of helplessness, having a chronic sense of fatigue. It can even lead to headaches and sleep disturbances. You could potentially even have, lead to sense of withdrawal from social interactions. And
if you've been working for a while and suddenly you're tired, there's a lot of things going on. It's rough with everything. It's just life is rough. How do you recognize that you're actually suffering from compassion fatigue and not something else?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. And I think that, it can help to, when you're hearing about these symptoms that I was just describing, and you understand that, there could be some other things in your life that are contributing to, a negative emotional state or some symptoms of depression or anxiety. I think also going to seek help when you identify or notice that these symptoms are really having an impact on different areas of your life, whether socially, at work, with your family. And I would really recommend reaching out to a professional, to talk to a professional. I mean, many times these symptoms of compassion fatigue, they overlap with, they said, other, symptoms of depression and anxiety, and better understanding what the sources of those are is really critical. But then also some of the ways in which to address those symptoms, no matter what the cause is, can be overlapping and very similar.
But is there, so if I start feeling, I'm thinking like, okay, I might be suffering from a tiny degree of compassion fatigue. Is there, before I start seeking therapy, do you have any advice where you can start, or actually, how can you prevent it? Maybe that's a better question, actually.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, one thing I think that's so critical is that piece around practicing self-care and really being aware of maintaining a balance between, your work life and home life, like really focusing on that work-life balance, which I know is much easier to say than to do. But once you are aware of how you're feeling, these symptoms, really taking those steps to create those boundaries, establishing those professional boundaries, so that you avoid that over-identification, and that, not only just the time, but also the extent to which you may also need to create better boundaries with clients, with patients. Also things like seeking help from your peers and peer support. It's so important to raise this topic and discuss experiences with your colleagues. I'm just thinking in a workplace setting who might really understand and likely do. And also just in terms of staying informed and educated, really being aware of those symptoms so that you can take some steps to take care of yourself, not just in terms of your mental health, but your physical health and well-being, which plays such a big role. They're so strongly interconnected. So really focusing on those healthy habits like, healthy diet and eating and exercise, and getting enough sleep. These are all very closely interrelated and help to not only address but prevent compassion fatigue, those symptoms from really taking over.
So if I didn't manage to, I didn't manage to prevent it, and I'm feeling it, and then I seek therapy. If I come to you, where would you start? And how long will it take until I'm fixed?
So I can't really say how long things take to necessarily fix.
It's kind of like your back when your back hurts. It's like I can't tell them how exactly how long it will take. It's the same in your profession.
Exactly. That's very individual, but really in starting to recognize, one, to better understand and increase the awareness in clients of how they're feeling, really holding space for that sharing of those feelings of feeling overwhelmed, feeling that lack of empathy, that the helplessness, that the symptoms that might accompany compassion fatigue. And there's a lot of guilt that comes with that as well, particularly for those who are in a helping profession or engaged in caregiving responsibilities. There's oftentimes a sense of, really feeling that you are, not understanding where this is coming from, feeling guilty, like you're cold or there's a heartlessness. And that's not the case. This is a result of that physical and mental exhaustion from feeling overwhelmed, for having such great exposure to these caretaking responsibilities, to even potentially, the trauma that you're experiencing secondarily from helping others.
And I must also say it's a degree of shame in it, because that's your profession. You should be able to take care of people. That's
yes, absolutely,
in the thing. Yeah.
Right.
I know that you're not a chiropractor, however, I know you have chiropractic experiences, just as being a friend of a chiropractor, that's me, and then also from getting treatment yourself. How can, if you're a physiotherapist or a chiropractor, an osteopath, a massage therapist, is there things that could relate more to our group than other groups?
Yeah, well, I am quite fond of chiropractors and chiropractic care, which is really so, it's not only is there an emotional element to it in terms of, as with other medical professionals and care professionals, a sense of feeling responsible for patients' well-being. That piece, I think, can really put chiropractors at risk for compassion fatigue, as well as, there's also a very hands-on nature of the work. There are very close relationships that are built with patients who might have undergone some real trauma leading to the need for chiropractic care. There might also be, issues around chronic pain or, even just the demands of chiropractors that could lead to that emotional exhaustion. There could be a sense of, responsibility if patients' progress is slow or there might be setbacks. And I can really see not only those physical demands, but combined with that emotional toll, it can really exacerbate those feelings of compassion fatigue and really contribute to that in the field.
Because we all have those patients whose stories really, really, you're supposed to go in there and do your work and kind of detach and go back, go to the next patient. However, there are some stories that are just terrible, and then you keep. It's hard to detach. You kind of carry them with you, and you really want to help so badly, yes. But it's like you don't have the tools. So it's big things, and you come at last, and they kind of keep following you. Their stories, you can't shake them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I can see that.
What's a good way if you start having if you have like a couple of those patients, what's a good way to actually detach more?
So I think one piece is, making sure that you have these professional boundaries, which are just in the sense of also a recognition that while you have such a big role and play such a big role in helping others and helping to relieve their pain, helping to improve their well-being, that that only extends so far. And recognizing and appreciating what you have to offer, and then also those limitations, as hard as they may be, to accept. Another piece too is just around, again, trying to maintain that balanced lifestyle, being able to have those distinct shifts between the workplace and your work, and then home or life outside of that. And even within the workday, trying to incorporate some of those stress relieving techniques into your daily routines, being able to step out and have some time away, whether it's going outside, whether it's taking a break in a different area, engaging in some mindfulness techniques. Also, a big piece of it, I think, is, the extent to which those, employers can also create those healthy workplace routines and environments. And having that peer support, I think, is so important. Again, being able to discuss experience with colleagues who really understand the demands of chiropractic care.
And to have like the network of people around you. But as I'm listening to you, it also, so many of the things you are saying that we should do, these are exactly same things we are trying to teach our patients. But I think we might sometimes lose the connection that we actually have to do it ourselves to keep us from being burned out and unhealthy and to lose it, really.
No, that's such an excellent point. And I think that so many people in helping and caring professions also face this. They're used to being givers. And so oftentimes there's a little bit of sight lost in taking care of themselves and ourselves in that. And, having that focus on being able to care for yourself, ensure that you are in a good place to be able to care for others.
Well, this makes a lot of sense. My last question to you, Alicia, is compassion fatigue. Is it well known? Does all therapists kind of know this? Is this a new thing? How aware, if I go to a therapist or a psychologist or psychiatrist, how aware are generally these therapists about this topic?
Well, certainly in the mental health professions, and I can't speak to all areas or regions, but it's a widely known condition and phenomenon. So this is something that most, if not all, therapists should be aware of. Certainly. And as I mentioned, there was greater recognition, I would say, in the past 5, years or so, because we were seeing such high degrees of compassion fatigue and burnout during the pandemic, certainly in the United States, and I can very much imagine across other countries as well. And so this is a topic that, most therapists are very familiar with.
I was just on the note of pandemic. In Norway, we were quite lucky that we didn't shut down the offices way too long. But we had a complete shutdown for five weeks in Norway. And then a lot of my friends and colleagues, they said when they couldn't work, some of them said they kind of felt like they lost their identity. It was really hard because especially those who didn't have small kids at home or had to take care of other people, but it was just themselves. And then it's who am I when I'm not taking care of others or not being a chiropractor. And it was really tough. Would you translate this to maybe they are at the risk of having an unbalanced life, and that you are actually at the risk of getting a compassion fatigue?
That is a really insightful point, Elizabeth. It definitely is it can be an indicator that a lot of your, identity is wrapped up in your profession. And that could be an indicator too that there is not, that there isn't this fully developed sense of self where you have other areas where you're getting a great sense of purpose. That purpose is not just in your profession, but also in the other roles that you play in life. And so I could certainly see that this could be one area that really puts individuals at greater risk for compassion fatigue, potentially.
Mm-hmm. So if I should sum up a little bit, if you are compassion fatigue is quite common among caregivers or people who has a lot of empathy in their line of work. It can be with therapists, and it can also be other caretakers. And then if you start developing symptoms of exhaustion, exhaustion, lack of energy, bad sleep, and general anxiousness, this could be part of a compassion fatigue. Is that right?
Yes.
And the most important thing is especially to all those young practitioners out there, the way to prevent it is to work on having a work-life balance, to take breaks, take vacation, do a little meditation, walk outside, and do all this wonderful thing that we actually tell our patients to do for their physical health and or for mental health. We need to make sure we do it ourselves, and also the important that we need peer support groups, we need friends to talk with, colleagues to talk with, or other people to talk about the struggles we have in our work days so they don't build up and become a problem. Does that sum it up?
That does sum it up. And those are all excellent recommendations. And I greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today about this topic.
Thank you, Alicia. It was lovely to hear your beautiful voice. So excited to share this topic with our audience. And I would love to invite you back another time.
Oh, thank you so much. It's been my pleasure.